At 8 o'clock, 2 p.m. on August 10th in Wenchang, Hainan, China, a gold medal Chinese rocket worth hundreds of millions, which had succeeded 16 times in a row, along with a military satellite costing over 1.5 billion, suddenly exploded into a massive fireball 85 seconds after liftoff and crashed into the South China Sea. A few hours later, officials took down all the footage, only managing to squeeze out a statement about a flight anomaly. Many people thought this was just an accidental mechanical failure, but those in the know would feel a sudden jolt in their hearts the moment they heard the number 85 seconds. Even fewer people noticed that just 12 days earlier, officials were still promoting this launch, claiming it would break the record for the shortest launch interval. Less than a month before the explosion, Ma Xingrui, a member of the Politburo who was once regarded as the biggest signboard of the Aerospace system, was expelled from the party and dismissed from public office. This explosion not only tore apart the aerospace achievements that the CCP prides itself on, but it also ripped open the most hidden wound in Xi Jinping's heart. On the evening of August 10th, at the Wenchang spacecraft launch site in Hainan, the Long March 7A carrier rocket, which we'll refer to as the Long March 7A from here on, roared to life and lifted off, carrying the ChinaSat 4B satellite. About 85 seconds later, a blinding flash of fire erupted in the night sky, and the rocket disintegrated and fell into the sea. 3 hours later, Xinhua news agency announced that the rocket had experienced an abnormal flight, the launch mission had failed, and the cause was under further analysis and investigation. Then, footage of the explosion on major short video platforms in mainland China was scrubbed overnight. On the surface, this launch failure isn't particularly strange. After all, aerospace development is something that succeeds through explosions. But if you put this launch under a microscope, you'll find 5 extremely unusual aspects to it. First of all, the Long March 7A is no novice just starting out. Although it did explode once during its maiden flight in 2020, starting in 2021, it has been smooth sailing, successfully launching 16 times in a row without a single hitch. In the aerospace industry, the unwritten rule is that the maiden flight is the most dangerous, and the more you fly, the safer it gets. A 16-launch winning streak has long since made the Long March 7A the absolute workhorse and gold standard for China's high-orbit satellite launches. In the minds of most people, a mature rocket is synonymous with absolute safety. For this veteran to suddenly flip over like this, it's like it's about to tarnish its reputation in its twilight years. What's even more alarming than this veteran tarnishing its reputation is that eerie 85-second mark. For those in the aerospace industry, hearing 85 seconds makes their hearts skip a beat. Why is that? Because after a rocket lifts off, this is roughly the time it passes through a gate of hell, known as the region of maximum dynamic pressure, professionally referred to as max Q. You can imagine it as the rocket hitting a thick, hard wall of air at an extremely high speed. This is the moment when the entire rocket body endures the greatest aerodynamic and mechanical forces. An explosion at this critical juncture indicates a pretty hardcore problem. Either the structure couldn't hold up, or there was a catastrophic, sudden failure in the first stage main engine booster. A maiden flight failure can be blamed on, well, the design not knowing the ropes, still being in the exploratory phase. But for a mature model to disintegrate at this point, it means that this system, which had already run successfully 16 times, suddenly developed a malignant, toxic failure from within. So what is this malignant failure? It was foreshadowed before the launch. This is the third anomaly. Rushing the launch, this is a point many friends haven't noticed. Just 12 days ago, on July 29th, the very same launch pad at the Wenchang spacecraft launch site had just launched a Long March 7A. Before this launch, state media even specifically announced that this would set a new record for the shortest launch interval for the Long March 7A, and indeed for the entire new generation of Long March rockets. I should mention here that the Long 7A, mentioned in official reports, is actually just an abbreviation for the Long March 7A carrier rocket. So the Long 7 modified and the Long 7A are actually the same rocket. At this point, you might ask, isn't high launch efficiency a good thing? Doesn't SpaceX launch every few days and it's still perfectly reliable? But you have to realize they are using the same seasoned rocket that is repeatedly recovered and reused, whereas China's Long March rockets are expendable. Every single launch involves a new rocket assembled from thousands of brand new components. It's like SpaceX is dealing with used car maintenance. Every time a rocket returns from space, it only needs targeted inspection and maintenance at the factory. Whereas China's Long March rockets are like pure, high-precision, hand-built new cars, where every single launch requires reassembling tens of thousands of parts from scratch. Do you think this forced acceleration to a 12-day interval is really feasible? When the same model and the same launch pad keep breaking turnaround records, aren't the launch site testing loads, quality control, and personnel stress being pushed up simultaneously? Doesn't that create a greater risk of something going wrong? Here, I'd like to ask you all, do you think that trying to break launch records in such a short time shows that China's aerospace efficiency is getting higher and higher, and that it's reached this point? Or do you think it's taken risks just to break records? If you think it's the former, type efficiency is up for me. If you think it's the latter, type political risk. And if you think it's a bit of both, type both for me. Is this a political leap forward just to snatch a record-breaking medal? Keep this question in mind, folks. We'll come back to it later. And the cost of losing this gamble would be staggering. This time, what was carried deep into the South China Sea by this sick rocket wasn't some toy experiment from a small private company, but the ChinaSat 4B communication satellite. In the hierarchy of China's aerospace program, the words ChinaSat often conceal the highest level of national defense secrets. Especially the main satellite this time. It uses China's most advanced Dongfeng 4 large communication satellite platform. What does that even mean? In the aerospace field, a satellite platform is like your family assets when you're on a blind date. Everyone lays their assets out to compare and see which one is better. Ordinary small civilian satellites weigh a few hundred kilograms, have a power of a few hundred watts, and a lifespan of only 3 to 5 years, while the Dongfeng 4 is an aerial behemoth weighing several tons with a power of over 10,000 watts and a lifespan of a full 15 years. A top-tier satellite platform like the Dongfeng 4 is naturally designed to carry out strategic-level missions. This satellite is equipped with extremely high-powered transponders, high-precision directional antennas, and robust anti-jamming and encrypted communication modules. In modern military science, this kind of geostationary satellite, positioned 36,000 kilometers high, is the military's celestial brain. Whether it's nuclear submarines, border defense troops stationed in remote areas, or even command transmissions for tactical missiles, all rely on these high-orbit satellites for all-weather, beyond line-of-sight command and encrypted data transmission. Building such a top-tier satellite easily costs over $1.5 billion just in research, development, and production, not to mention the long-term cost of the launch vehicle and the service fees at the Wenchang spacecraft launch site. Insiders revealed that the direct and indirect losses caused by this explosion reached as high as 3.2 billion RMB. But having said that, what kept the CCP command center up at night even more than losing those 3.2 billion was the domino effect that followed. The first stage core of the Long March rocket uses the yttrium fluoride 100 liquid oxygen kerosene engine. However, this engine is not exclusive to the Long March rocket. The Long March 5, Long March 6A, and Long March 8, a whole slew of the CCP's May rockets all use this very engine. You could say that the yttrium fluoride 100 is the shared heart of China's new generation of rocket families. And within China's aerospace system, there is also a double zero-out review mechanism. The so-called double zero-out refers to technical zero-out, which means identifying the root technical issues and redoing the work from scratch. The other zero-out is management zero-out, which means identifying the responsible parties and holding them accountable. So what the Chinese aerospace community fears most right now is that if this zero-out investigation reveals an issue with the engine, it won't just affect this one rocket, but a large portion of their entire rocket fleet. This would mean that the launch schedule for China's entire new generation of main rockets would be frozen across the board, and the first mission to bear the brunt of this impact would likely be the Chang'e 7 lunar exploration mission, which the authorities have invested heavily in. At this point, the Long March 5 Y-14 rocket and the Chang'e 7 probe have already arrived at Wenchang, just waiting for that narrow launch window in the second half of the year to ignite. Now, a dark cloud is already hanging over it. At this point, it's no longer just a simple matter of a rocket exploding. Behind the management zeroing process, it means that everyone along the entire chain of responsibility, from the general commander to the designers, and from the factory manager to the high-ranking procurement officials, has been thrust into the center of a storm. And this storm had already been brewing for 3 years before this rocket was even ignited. On one side, there were political targets to break records and offer grand tributes. On the other, a bloody explosion site and an impending list of accountability. What those 85 seconds blew up was a verdict, and what it is set to judge is a faction that was once placed on a pedestal. We need to rewind time to the autumn of 2012. Before that year, the Petroleum Gang, represented by Zhou Yongkang, dominated the vast majority of China's technocratic political landscape. However, a major political purge after the 18th National Congress uprooted all these deeply entrenched old power bases. With those power bases collapsed, the positions became vacant. For Xi Jinping, the most thorny issue before him was who would take over this newly vacated power? He needed a political force that was absolutely obedient and clean. This group of people had to possess the ability to manage super projects, yet they could not have any sectarian background from local power bases. Ideally, they would be outsiders who could stake their entire loyalty on him alone. His gaze ultimately fell upon the Aerospace faction. From 2012 to 2020, a large number of high-level technocrats with aerospace backgrounds experienced an explosive wave of political promotions. In Xi Jinping's eyes, this group of military-industrial cadres possessed something that others could not provide. First and foremost, loyalty. The military-industrial system is all about safeguarding secrets, ensuring launches, and guaranteeing success. This group of people has spent years immersed in closed environments and strict discipline, accustomed to following political directives without question. He wanted a culture of military-style obedience to get things done. Plus, his track record in large-scale engineering is unmatched. From manned spaceflight to the Chang'e lunar program, these projects involve thousands of parts and organizations. Coordinating so many institutions and people is no small feat. In the calculations of the top leadership, these are ready-made governance talents. Wouldn't they be more than capable of managing a province or a ministry? And so the baton of engineering command was swapped for the scepter of party and government power. The most dazzling aspect is the calling card of national rice. Every success of the Shenzhou, Chang'e, and Tianwen missions is top-tier traffic for nationalist propaganda. Just think about it. When the rocket streaks across the night sky and the footage of thunderous applause in the command center is played over and over again, those people standing in the front row are the best political achievements they could ask for. This entire grand narrative fits seamlessly into Xi Jinping's vision of a space power and military-civil fusion. He needs this group of people to step into the spotlight and help him prop up the facade. Li Chen, a scholar at the Brookings Institution in the United States, once pointed out how this kills two birds with one stone. On one hand, promoting the aerospace faction aligns with Xi Jinping's advocacy for using aerospace to demonstrate national strength and promote military-civil fusion. And what about the other hand? These outsiders, who lack local roots, can be used to dilute and weaken those deeply entrenched local factions, making the foundation of power more diverse and stable. Consequently, the China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation and the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation were transformed into incubators for high-ranking officials in the Xi Jinping era. Let me list a few names, and you'll understand just how prominent these people were back then. Ma Xingrui, known as the Young Marshal of Aerospace, he led the China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation and the National Space Administration, while also directing the manned space and new generation rocket programs. He later transitioned to local government, serving as Party Secretary of Shenzhen, Governor of Guangdong, and Party Secretary of Xinjiang, before joining the Politburo in 2022. A fellow Shandong native and family friend of Peng Liyuan, he is a key confidant to Xi Jinping. Previously, as a young marshal of aerospace, he became the youngest member of the Central Committee in his early 40s. He later served as Hebei Governor and Heilongjiang Party Secretary. Yuan Jiajun, former Shenzhou Program Commander and China Aerospace Executive, governed Zhejiang before moving to Chongqing in 2022, where he joined the CPC Politburo. Xu Dazhe served as the general manager of the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation and as the director of the China National Space Administration before later becoming the party secretary of Hunan Province. At their peak, this group of high-ranking officials from the aerospace and military-industrial complex held top positions in several provinces and key roles at the central government level. A technocrat who started out tightening screws and building rockets found a smooth, wide path leading all the way to the CPC Politburo. Just think about it. Isn't it absurd? Just imagine when a general manager of an aerospace group or the president of a rocket research institute realizes that they not only hold hundreds of billions in research funding, but also possess a golden ticket to becoming a provincial party secretary or even a Politburo member. What kind of mindset would they have? Naturally, they would vie for political advancement, start overriding technical principles, and the supply chain would turn into a black hole for funneling benefits. Starting in 2023, a storm shocked China and the world. It began with mysterious disappearances. In June, Foreign Minister Qin Gang, who had risen rapidly, suddenly vanished from public view. Soon after, Rocket Force Commander Li Yuchao also disappeared without a trace. And then, Defense Minister Li Shangfu disappeared as well. On July 31st of that year, Xi Jinping personally promoted the new Rocket Force Commander and Political Commissar to the rank of General. But these two men, Wang Haobin and Xu Sising, one from the Navy and the other from a theater command, were complete outsiders to the rocket force. Why would this ace force, held so dear by Xi Jinping, need outsiders to take over? The entire rocket force leadership was wiped out. 3 consecutive commanders, Li Yuchao, Zhao Yaning, and Wei Fenghe, were all removed. And this purge of the rocket force was just the beginning. The storm followed the trail of equipment procurement, backfiring all the way to the military-industrial giants that produce the rockets. Friends, consider the gravity of this purge. In December 2023, China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation Chairman Wu Yansheng lost his CPPC membership. That same day, former China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation GM Liu Shiquan, now at Norinco, and Deputy GM Wang Chongqing were removed from their posts. In January 2024, Wang Xiaozhen, former head of the China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology, had his CPPCC membership revoked. Remember, this academy built the Long March 7A, and even its former leader has now fallen. And Wu Yansheng also came from this first academy in his early years. In April 2024, Yuan Hao, head of China Aerospace Science and Industry, vanished from public view and was removed from his post despite his recent election to the Central Committee. 4 months later, former 8th Academy head Dai Holun faced investigation. 2 months after that, Zhu Dazhe, the high-ranking military-industrial official and former Hunan Party secretary, had his National People's Congress Standing Committee position revoked. From state-owned enterprise chairmen to rocket research heads and regional officials, the entire top tier of the aerospace system has been overturned in just 2 years. Like a capsized battleship, these former political stars have either been sidelined or have fallen into lengthy investigations. And this is just the aerospace sector. The military-industrial system has also been almost entirely affected. Starting late 2023, Beijing inspected 30 military-industrial firms, sparking a purge. Hu Wenming, former China shipbuilding chair and aircraft carrier overseer, got 13 years for corruption. In October 2024, Rocket Force Chief Engineer Zhao Longsu was stripped of his CPPCC seat. The U.S. Defense Department noted that in late 2023 alone, at least 15 senior military and defense officials were removed. We have all seen the situation on the military side. The storm is blowing even higher. Military Commission Vice Chairman He Weidong was expelled from the party in October 2025, and Zhang Yuxia was arrested this January. This is unprecedented in the history of the CCP. The story is already thrilling enough up to this point, but the real climax happened this year. In July 2025, Ma Xingrui was removed as Xinjiang Party Secretary. Officials initially claimed he would be reassigned. However, on April 3rd, Xinhua reported he was under investigation for serious disciplinary violations. 3 months later, authorities announced his double expulsion. This is the story's climax, because you must understand Ma Xingrui. He isn't just another military-industrial figure. He's a top confidant promoted by Xi Jinping from the aerospace sector, embodying the young aerospace commander brand. Around the time Ma Xingrui fell, his former aides in Guangdong, Xinjiang, and Heilongjiang were also purged. It is a classic case of pulling up the radish and bringing out the mud. One fall exposes the entire network. In this 20th Party Congress term alone, only 3 Politburo members have fallen from power: He Weidong, Zhang Yuxia, and Ma Xingrui. Since the Cultural Revolution, it is unprecedented to purge 3 Politburo members within a single term. As for what lies behind this, is it a collapse of trust, specifically Xi Jinping's trust in his own people, or is it that he can no longer even protect his own inner circle? Today, we won't delve into that, but the result is that the myth of the Aerospace clique, once placed on a pedestal and the source of countless provincial party secretaries and Politburo members, has completely collapsed in just 2 or 3 short years. And this collapse hasn't stopped yet. The eyes of the outside world have now turned to another person who emerged from the system, also a Politburo member, Yuan Zhajun, the general commander of the Shenzhou spacecraft program. If you connect this timeline, my friends, you will see an incredibly ironic closed loop. In 2012, to break up old factions, Xi Jinping set his sights on the Aerospace system for its expertise and, most importantly, its loyalty, using political power to elevate them. By 2018, with power and massive budgets intertwined, technology first gave way to the unspoken rules of CCP officialdom. The halls of power became a black hole. In 2023, the major scandal involving the rocket force exploded, with its top leadership being completely wiped out. And by 2026, the final political signboard of the aerospace system, Ma Xingrui, fell from power. Let's zoom back to the night of August 10th, just passed. Less than a month after Ma Xingrui was expelled from the party and dismissed from his post, and under the shadow of the entire aerospace leadership being purged, with both the institute director and the group chairman falling from grace, a meritorious rocket developed by the institute and boasting an absolute myth of safety after 16 consecutive successful launches, disintegrated spectacularly on its way to achieving yet another record-breaking political accomplishment. On the surface, this was an isolated engineering accident, with the cause still under investigation. But behind the scenes, the sudden shattering of this gold standard of safety, which had successfully launched 16 times, was precisely a funeral sacrifice for the falling political fate of the CCP's aerospace system. And when the faction that originally relied on technical expertise is swallowed by the CCP's meat grinder, and when the people who build rockets are purged, isn't this flash of fire exploding in the sky the most authentic disillusionment of that so-called dream of becoming an aerospace superpower? Friends, what do you think? If you agree, please leave a like. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button. New viewers, subscribe to True Viewpoint so you don't miss any future videos. I also ask for a small favor from you all. Please forward and share my video with more friends so that more people can understand the 5 highly unusual aspects behind this Long March rocket explosion. And don't forget about that fan hype feature. Thank you all for your support. All right, that's all for today. Don't forget, we'll see you again at the same time this Thursday on True Viewpoint. Bye-bye.